Hey guys, serious question. Would you like to work until you're 80 years old? I don't believe you do, and I don't either. Thankfully, we have Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, one of the most influential book on personal finance, who gives us some of the answers on how to get out of the rat race. So is it worth reading? Yeah, of course it is. So let's see some of the lessons that we can learn from the book and how it helps us on our journey to financial freedom. Alright guys, welcome back. If you're new, I'm Patrick. I've been investing in real estate and the stock market for about 12 years now. And one of the books that's really inspired me and millions of other people's is Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. I think that it inspired the FIRE movement also, which is the financial independence retire early movement, if you guys know about it. So I'm not going to review the book cover to cover today because either you've read it or hopefully you will read it. But what I find more interesting is if I take some of the main lessons of the book that's really inspired me and helped me on my journey, and I think are really going to help you also. Alright guys, the first lesson I think is really important is the relationship between freedom, work, and money. In this case, obviously we're talking about financial freedom. And the reason why is a lot of people, we're kind of slave to our job and our bosses, right? Like the boss tells you when to work, you go to work and you have to do it. Now, here we have little Timmy. What Robert Kiyosaki says, one of the main lessons of the book, is that a lot of people, I did that too, you're probably in that situation, especially when you're younger, is we go to work, we start making money, and then we buy stuff. Well, all of that stuff costs money, but also has expenses. So let's say that you buy a house. A lot of people think of a house as an asset, but the problem is, well, you have to upkeep it, you have to pay your mortgage, you have to pay taxes and stuff like that. So that's all money that comes out of your pocket every month, meaning that you have to go to work to pay them every month. So it's an obligation, it's not optional, right? So the more you work, the more you start making money. Well, most people, the more stuff that they start buying. So it creates this loop, which he calls a rat race, and that's what we're trying to escape. Now, this is Timmy number two, which is what we aspire to be. I'm not quite there yet, I'll be honest with you, but I'm making progress. So, little Timmy number two here, instead of, yes, we all have to start somewhere. We go to work, but instead of spending off our money on stuff, we start buying assets that generate income for us. So instead of us working for the money, the asset starts to produce money for us even when we're not working, right? So the assets generates money and then you can buy the stuff with it. So it's not necessarily about living a life of poverty and not enjoying anything fun. It's just about buying that stuff with money generated by the asset, not money that you have to work for every day. Let me give you an example for that. My cell phone plan costs me about $80 a month, which includes the cell phone plan and the actual phone. So that cost me about $80 a month, and when I worked at the warehouse, I used to make about $20.50 per hour, something like that. So every month to get my phone, I would have to pay I would have to work 4 hours per month, right? Well, what I did during the market crash, I don't have a huge position in it, but I bought a stock that pays dividends. At the time, since the price of the stock was depressed, I bought it when it was giving a 15% dividend yield per year. Okay, so I don't have a huge position, but my position gives me $70 per month. Well, if you think about it, this is so powerful. The $70 a month from these assets is going to pay for my $80 per month phone bill. So now that's basically 4 hours per month that I don't have to work anymore. Like I gain that freedom back. And that's why it's a relationship between freedom, work, and money. Is that the more you can replace this work with assets that are going to generate income, the less you're going to have to work, and the more you're going to be able to afford stuff. It's like a snowball that keeps getting bigger and bigger. Now, what can you do in your life? How can you start? Now, start thinking about that. What can you replace in your life? I told you an example about my cell phone plan, but I don't know how much you're starting with, but try to think of assets that you can buy that are going to generate money when you're not working. So a rental property is an example of you're going to make income every month that's going to replace something that you're paying right now. Right now, it's taking money out of your pocket every month, whether it's gas for your car, whether it's your cable bill, you know what I mean? So try to think of little goals that you can replace with passive income, and the more you do that, the more freedom you're going to have and the less you're going to have to work. Now, the next thing I want us to look at is the relationship between school and skills, which is extremely important in this book and is really going to help you. I mean, I've read the book a bunch of times, and this is one of the things that I just recently thought about. That's why it's so influential. Is the concepts are super simple, but the more you read it, the more you make new links that are going to really help you develop. So school versus skills. Most people, you you go to high school and stuff like that, you graduate, and then you go to college and you learn a lot of knowledge. Then you start your career and then you work forever. Okay, some of the stuff you've learned in school you never use again, but you learned enough to find a job and then you work forever at that job. You get a new job and you don't really build on it. You just go from one to another, but without really developing skills that are going to help you get out of the rat race. Now, Timmy number two, which again is what we aspire to be, and this is something that really came to me the last time I read the book. When you go to school, you learn a lot of knowledge, which is very crucial. You have to have critical thinking and you have to be able to reason, and you need a broad knowledge in life, right, to be a better person. But instead of just staying there and not doing anything with it, which is a complaint that a lot of people have about school, when you start working, you can design your work to where you're going to learn skills that are going to help you in your investing. Okay, instead of being in a dead end job forever, you actually learn skills that are going to help you in the future and make you advance and get out of the rat race. Let me give you an example, as I love examples, and it's going to help you illustrate what I'm talking about. When I was working at the same warehouse that I talked about earlier, a lot of people had, to them, that was their job. They didn't plan about going anywhere else. Okay, so they were working there, getting their money, living their life. They had no plan further than that. But for you, if you're like the little Timmy number two, you kind of have, for you, it's a stepping stone. Okay, what can you learn at your current job that's going to help you further your investment career? Obviously, at a warehouse, it's kind of limited. But when I switched to solar sales to sell solar panels, sales as a skill is extremely important. You learn how to talk to people, and that's one of the skills that you're going to need when you're investing, especially if you're looking to start investing in real estate. Well, it's a people business, right? So you have to talk with the people, you have to see if you can buy their house, you have to negotiate with the banker, you have to negotiate with real estate agents. So sales is a crucial tool, okay? So here, you have your work that's designed to help you learn skills that are going to help you in your investing and getting out of the rat race, as opposed to just working for the sake of work. So how can you design that in your own life? What can you learn at work that's going to help you? Okay, if there's nothing anymore, okay, if you're just working for the sake of getting a paycheck, maybe it's time to look and see if you can actually make a change. I mean, you have to look at the facts. It is what it is. Maybe you need to take a step back and see, well, what can I do in the future that's going to help me progress? Okay, it's not just about making more money at that same job and getting a raise, because if you're not learning anything, you're going to keep just buying more stuff and staying in the rat race. As opposed to if you learn new skills, that might help you in the future. Now, let me give you another example. Let's say that you want to learn about real estate, but you're not really sure about anything. You're not experienced with it. Well, if you start working at a real estate firm that does closings, for example, or you start working for a real estate agent, or you start becoming a leasing agent for a company that has multifamilies, these skills that you're going to learn are going to really help you start your own investments, right? Because if you're able to lease an apartment for another company, well, you're going to be able to lease your own rental. Think about that. I mean, that's how you get started. So, school versus skills, extremely important in his book. The third and final lesson that I want us to think about when it comes to Rich Dad Poor Dad is that losers are afraid to lose. Now, you see this all the time. If you go on forums for investing and other websites, you see people that have what's called analysis paralysis, which means that they're so afraid of losing money, even a penny, that they never take action. They can go years looking for the perfect deal because they're afraid to take action. Well, the problem with that is that those people, they'll go for stuff that's extremely safe. The financial advisor tells them to get a CD at 2% or something really safe at 4%, and they'll go for that because they're afraid of losing money. Now, losing money sucks, like, there's no doubt about it. But little Timmy number two actually understands that the goal is to start with less and end with more. That's why, like, that's a philosophy behind my channel is losses, if you're actually investing consistently, are inevitable. Like, you're going to lose some money sometimes. But it doesn't matter if you lose money. What matters is what did you learn from that mistake and how can you use it later? You keep developing those skills when you're losing sometimes. Like, obviously you don't want to go bankrupt and then you're done, but you have to mitigate your risk, but not to a degree where you're so fearful of losing that when you actually see an opportunity, you're actually not going to jump on it. And that is really big difference between the two. Let me give you another example. Recently in the stock market had gone up, had gone down 5%. Okay, so I was looking at the stock market and I was like, all the signs were showing that it was fairly weak and that the stock market was going to keep dropping a little bit more. So I figured, okay, well, let me bet against the stock market and generate a little profit that way. Well, what I didn't know was that historically, after a day where the stock market drops by 5% or more, the next day is almost always a pretty significant gain. Okay, they usually regain most of what's lost. So I lost a few $100 that day. Okay, but so it's a setback. It sucks. But what you have to do is analyze that and see how does that work in the future. When I looked it up online, I saw that historically, time after time, when this happens, the stock market rebounds the next day. Well, that means that the next time this situation happens, I'm going to have experience with it. I'm going to know this is coming, so I'll be able to exploit it to make profits. Okay. Well, if I had never looked at it, if I had never analyzed what went wrong, I'd be in the same situation and I would be making zero. So keep that in mind. You want to mitigate your risk. You don't want to lose all of your money, but at the same time, you can't stop yourself from investing and getting that experience. You're not going to become an expert until you start doing it. The first notes that I bought was in New York, and it took 1 year for me to get any result from it. Okay, and I actually ended up losing $16,000 after 3 or 4 years. But so $16,000 is a pretty significant loss for most people, right? But the thing is that in the meantime, because I don't have that problem of fear of losing, okay, I had bought many other notes, including some that were complete home runs. So I made way more than the $16,000 that I lost just because I didn't let that stop me. Well, that's the lesson that I want you to learn is, like, analyze some of the investments you've made. And maybe you've lost some before and that got you scared, or maybe you're scared of starting out because, like, people tell you it's not going to work or everything. Well, I mean, we're here to show you that, yeah, investing actually does work. Kiyosaki talks about it all the time. That's how people actually get out of the rat race. So don't go crazy and invest all of your money and lose it, but at the same time, don't be afraid to take little risks and learn from your mistakes if you do have some mistakes. Guys, I hope this really helps you. I mean, these lessons have tremendously helped me over the years, and in my journey, and I hope that they help you also. If you haven't done so, subscribe please. It really helps. It's going to be your good deed for the day, and I'm going to see you in the next video.